Hey, I'm Brandon Cross from Hoyack, and today's Whiteboard Wednesday is going to be about the general AI tool ecosystem right now. So I want to kind of go through the state of where the ecosystem for different AI tools kind of is right now. I've done a talk about this at kind of a local co-working space not too long ago, and I think it was really interesting, like just defining some of the different roles that some of these different tools do and what the entire ecosystem's purpose is. It can be really confusing to navigate, and that's what this session's for, is to kind of help to bring a little bit of clarity to that. So let's kind of start with the number one player that everybody knows, the open AI. Okay, right? These guys, they're a big name in the space. Everybody knows open AI, and they have a bunch of different offerings. So they have Chat GPT, which pretty much most people have probably heard of by now, and ChatGPT can do a number of really cool things, but it has a number of other ecosystem things as well. But along the lines of these chat-based driven, I guess these are kind of referred to as multimodal sort of chat interfaces. There's a few others that are important and notable. Now, before I get into those, I'll kind of dive into some other things that these guys do. They have their API. Okay, so a lot of people are using. Man, that's terrible. A lot of people are using the API, and one of the big differences between the API and the ChatGPT service is that the API is metered. Okay, so every single request goes into a meter that that logs how much you spend. But in ChatGPT, there's kind of like a fixed usage sort of model. So you kind of have like a particular fee. I don't remember if it's $29 or $109, whatever it is. Just they have a fee, they're charging you, and you're using that system kind of as much as you want. However, there's some limits that sometimes it'll impose. Sometimes it'll kind of tire out and make you, tell you to come back later and stuff like that. Depending on the model you're using, depending on the tier that you're at, okay? And so you can generate images, you can generate, now with the Sora ecosystem, right? So Sora is their video generation engine. And now they have another thing called, I think it's called Codex, I believe. It's a new thing. And then, they also have these this sub thing called these GPTs that come off of that kind of connect back to different tools and ecosystems and different things. Okay, so these were like the earliest forms of tools that you would have seen in some of this space. Now, ChatGPT has a number of tools that it can use, like it's got a search tool, and it has like a deep research tool. It's got it has a couple of different cool little tools that you can enable, and you can basically say, okay, do this or do this kind of thing. Now, so that's a little bit about the OpenAI ecosystem, but there's a few other big ecosystems out there, I would say, that fall in the line of the same thing as ChatGPT, but they all kind of have their own little edge. Now, I'm going to talk about one that I think is like one of the big names that's coming up, and it's probably it's probably going to be a big household name before long, and that's Perplexity. Okay, so Perplexity is a little bit of a different kind of LLM ecosystem. It's got the ability to it has like a chat system, but the chat system is heavily powered by a search capability, okay? And their search capability is really, really good. Now, Perplexity they offer a few different model choices. Like I think one of their things is kind of based on DeepSeek, but there's some other ways to actually get it to use other models. But their search tool is really, really, really powerful. And they have like a deep research tool as well, kind of like ChatGPT, okay? So they have a really powerful deep tool as well. Now, another interesting thing about these is that both of these systems have like API layer stuff that you can hook into. So you can actually use the API to do deep research with Perplexity really easily, utilizing like the right models and stuff like that. So now Perplexity I think Perplexity is like shaping up to become like a real big competitor to Google. They're really focusing on that. They're focusing on kind of this conversational search and making the best conversational search engine possible. They also have a browser that they recently released. They have various desktop apps that they've released, plus their mobile app. And Perplexity has a couple of other cool things. It has a task system. So it can like do like you can like schedule a task like, go research this information or go check the web for these kinds of citations and things like that. It always brings citations in, especially over the API, which is one of the really rare areas where you ever see that. And so, and it also has the ability to do things like create essentially like different kinds of assets. Like I haven't really utilized it quite yet, but there's capability to create like slide decks and documents and things right out of Perplexity. Back over on the OpenAI ecosystem, I forgot to mention one of my favorites, the Operator. The Operator is kind of a computer automation system. Operator. And so the computer automation behind that, it's like emulating a web browser, going out onto the internet, doing something on behalf of you, the user, and then enacting, on your behalf. It's saving like credentials that it might use to access a system that it needs to log into, and then automate pushing and pulling around in that. So really, really powerful kind of, capability that not everybody offers. So that's OpenAI and that's Perplexity. Now, there's another really big one that everybody talks about, and it's, I would say, Anthropic. And so Anthropic is, now they've got the Claude system, the Sonnet model and the Opus model right now. Those are the two big, Sonnet and Opus. And then, up here on ChatGPT, you've got like 4.0, and then you have 4.1, and there's the 4.5 preview. I hear that's kind of going away. 4.1 is kind of the new standard. There's like different mini models. There's, and then some of my favorites, the O3, and of course the O3 Pro. So the O3 Pro is kind of like a higher tier type model. And then down here, Anthropic, Claude, same kind of chat interface. But when you subscribe to Claude, then you get access to this thing called Claude Code. And so Claude Code is this like command line based thing that you can start, and it basically like it logs into Claude, and then it can kind of almost take over your computer and just do anything. It's insane. It can reconfigure just about anything. It can create new files. It can there's certainly some different like techniques to using this stuff, but Claude Code is one of the premier kind of software development coding things that, you know, because we used to, when we wanted to like write code in the early days of this stuff, we would like go into ChatGPT and we would say, hey, generate some code for this, you know, function that I need. And we would build like little teensy weensy little pieces of code one by one and and then assemble them together and then try them and you know, if they would work, great. Otherwise you go back to the drawing board and, you know, oh, I had this error, fix it. Well, now that's kind of all automated. So like systems like Claude Code enable you to just query and ask it, like, you know, build me an app that does this, and then it'll just start doing that, or any number of other things. So I'd say Anthropic, you know, that's and that's kind of like one of their, like, they don't really offer as much, you would think, as like some of the other guys, although it's very similar in terms of like the search capabilities of ChatGPT, and then of course the API connectivity. I think that the Claude Code with the Claude subscription is one of the like really good, you know, that's like a really good one to have. Like all of these are really good, you know, Perplexity Pro, OpenAI Pro, you know, Claude Max, like all of those are like subs that I definitely carry all, you know, at all times. Now, you know, so this is great for like building apps. This is also not too bad. I haven't really used this for like actually doing serious software development, but Claude Code, I've seen what it can do, and a lot of people are using it for that, and I'm very impressed with what its capabilities are. So now, and like I said, all of these have different like API connections. Now I want to talk about one that is a little bit of a different ecosystem than the big ones that you see here. Okay, I'm going to talk about a local ecosystem you can run. Okay, so there's this thing called Ollama. Okay, and Ollama is like, it's a little script that you can download and install on your computer, and then you can run a command like Ollama run and then a model name, and then you can basically pull a model such as the llama you know, model, or a number of other ones. There's Mistral, is real common. You know, there's so many different ones that you can pull. There's Quinn. Matter of fact, Quinn just released a really interesting thing. And there's, you know, Gemma and Lava and so on and so forth. Okay. And so the Ollama system, what it does is it has all, you know, you pull in whatever models you want to have available on that rig, and it's going to like, it's using typically like, you know, your GPU, if you have it set up right, if you have like the right CUDA drivers and stuff installed and things, it should pick it up. And then what you do is one cool thing you can do is you can hook up Klein. Okay, Klein is a VS Code plugin. Now, VS Code is a software development, you know, kind of IDE, and Klein will hook up to Ollama. It'll also hook up to Claude Code. It'll hook up to ChatGPT. It'll hook up to a whole bunch of different, you know, a whole bunch of different things, right? And you can have Klein automatically generating your apps or websites or whatever. It's kind of a vibe coding platform, but you're using like your local machine for that. Now, another thing that's really cool is this thing called Open Web UI. Okay. Now, if you just go to Open Web UI and you look up the GitHub for it, there's going to be, if you scroll down, a little command to run a Docker command. And if you go to Docker and you download Docker and install it, and then if you've also installed Ollama, and then if you just run the command to pull down the Open Web UI container, then after a few minutes, when that thing starts up, assuming you've got, you know, your Docker installed and set up to where it can, you know, to where you can talk to your local network, then you're going to be, it'll hook right into your Ollama. And so now it's designed for running like local LLM type stuff. You can hook some other stuff up to it, but it's really designed for this setup. So now you've got your whole private ecosystem here, your open web UI, and then that has an open API compatible API endpoint as well that you can use to hit with stuff too. And so this thing, you can hook up to, you can have it hook up to Stable Diffusion, Stable Diffusion, or I think it'll even do Flux for like image generation. So you're getting a ChatGPT style interface where you can have chats, you can do things like generate images, analyze images, have conversations that have memory to remember, you can have tools that hook up to this. These things can do tool calling on the various tools for open web UI and things, and you can just run your own local private ChatGPT for yourself at no cost. Like literally just whatever hardware you have, like it'll try to use it as best it can. If you have low-end gear, you can use like very small models, like 1B models, 1 billion parameter models have a lot less, you need a lot less oomph than the big, than a big model. A lot of 30B models are really good general purpose. So, okay, so these are a few like really cool ecosystem type things that I think are, really worth kind of knowing about and understanding how to tap into. Now, I can't, of course, skip, mentioning a couple of other ones. We have, I'll just put it over here. We have Grok and, once again, API, it's got, a chat interface. It's got really powerful tools. Similar to Perplexity's tools, I would say. And another thing that Grok has that's really cool is tasks. Okay, and so now I have seen tasks in ChatGPT. I haven't used them yet. I don't know what their limitations are, but I have seen them. And so I'm really interested in tasks now because, I'll just kind of share one last system is Manus. And so Manus is really, they kind of have, it's really a chat and operator. And so this operator, and this is really kind of its deal. So, but it also has tasks, okay? And so what I like to do with Manus, and so, you subscribe to Manus and you have like a pool of points, okay? And so these points, they kind of, you use them as it does stuff. So this thing can do things like generate video using different video generation APIs. It can do things like, build apps, whole entire full-blown apps, stuff like that. So it's kind of like got like a lot of that vibe coding capability. It's an automated computer. It's really interesting. It kind of builds a lot of stuff on its own. And so now something that I've been doing that's cool is I've been like spawning tasks and then having the tasks make an API call to like a webhook that I have some middleware behind that then does something to a database and then sends back a response. And so I'm able to utilize like all these crazy AI workflows without having to do anything but throw a prompt in there and just tell it, hey, push and pull this data out of here. And it just goes, and every day it reinvents the wheel from scratch because it doesn't know how to do it any better. It just knows it has instructions and it just executes the instructions and it will just figure out how to execute them every time. It might do it differently every time, but it gets takes the same inputs and it gets the same outputs. And so, so these are really interesting. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Google. Really tough to find some room to put it, but I'll just put, Google, okay? And so, and Google has, they've got the Gemini, and Gemini is a really popular, it's like very popular. It's got a really big context window, I'd say, like one of the bigger context windows of these different systems, I think, is like Google's really proud of Gemini for that. The latest Gemini is pretty powerful, but the one that's really interesting about Google and the one that really everybody is using right now, And one of the last ones that I'm going to kind of talk about briefly is going to be the VO 3, and that's the video generation. So VO3 is really like a hot API. It's a hot thing to hit. If you just go to Gemini and you have like Google Pro access, you can do a lot from there, generating images and talking to it, having conversations, just like ChatGPT. But with the VO3 capability, you're able to generate some really sweet video content. And when you use that with the API call capability, because Google is really good with APIs, then you've got some cool things you can do. Now, one other big one that I think I need to mention from Google is this thing called Vertex Studio. Okay, and I'm writing this really big because it's a really big thing. Okay, and so I would say Vertex Studio is the professional kind of like chat interface that Google is providing for like creators. And so the big ones that I think that everybody needs to know, it's going to be your ChatGPT, your probably like Claude Opus is one of the better ones there. Your Grok chat, that's a good one. The VO3 is really big. Vertex Studio, I think, is important to know about. And of course, the Perplexity chat is definitely, you got to check that out. Manus may be a little bit more niche. There's only a couple of vibe coder things up here. Claude Code is kind of vibe code. Klein is kind of vibe code. There are other vibe code platforms I'm not going to talk about today because I could have a whole conversation about that. But those are just some like offshot services that tie into some stuff. And I think that Open Web UI is really cool if you're into like running local and you don't want to like expose any of your chats or anything like that to the cloud or things like that. So that's kind of the ecosystem. I mean, this is sort of like the general ecosystem today. It's like summer 2025, and so that's where we sit. These things are shifting all over the place. They're just new stuff popping up and just whole new areas. And these things are adding new services constantly. Every single one of these guys is like, this is like a huge just chase for like the best capabilities. A lot of these are running like now we're getting into like agentic things, the agent stuff. ChatGPT has agents. Perplexity is a bit of an agenty type system. Manus is all about the agents with the operator capabilities. Anthropic, Claude Code is basically an agent type coding system. And then, all of these things are capable of doing these agentic workflows too now. So we'll see where we go from here. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this ecosystem develops, to see what there's other, I could talk about all the different video ecosystems and things, Runway ML, but I'd say like VO3 and Sora are two really popular ones. Like if you want to get into some of the other specialty stuff, there's like Kling and, like I said, Runway. I'd have to think of some other ones, but it's developing. These things are really rapidly developing. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of a roadmap and helps you understand kind of, these systems just a little bit better.